The 2024 MLB winter meetings have come and gone. The St. Louis Cardinals basically did nothing during the week. They did jump into the top 5 of the 2025 MLB draft, which that's exciting. But overall, just a lot of discussions and potential groundwork laid for different things going on. Obviously, the market overall moved a lot, but we're going to react to all the things that did and didn't happen at the winter meetings and what our expectations are for the rest of the Cardinals offseason on this episode of Deal on the Cards. Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Deal on the Cards. If this is your first time, we're St. Louis Cardinals podcast that goes live twice a week here on the YouTube. We also have Birds on the Farm with Kareem, who's joining us on here today, which we're really excited about. We just like to talk Cardinal baseball. So like and subscribe helps the channel a ton. We're presented by 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. We'll tell you more about them in a little bit. Obviously, if you can hear my voice, I'm playing a little. I'm not Tyler O'Neill. I'm playing through it today. It's my Chip Carey game. I'm going for it. So maybe I'll let you guys do a little bit more of the talking today. But let's start with the highlight of the week. I mean, I think it's really the only major positive that happened, and it was the draft lottery last year. The Cardinals dropped one spot, ended up working out for them. JJ Weatherholt fell to them at number 7, which we are all ecstatic about, except for Andrew, who wanted Caglione, but whatever. But now the Cardinals jump from, I think it was supposed to be about the 13th pick all the way up to number 5 here. Kareem, as our resident Nostradamus, who likes to predict and just nails the Cardinals draft selection every year. Maybe we won't ask you for an official prediction right now, but react a little bit to the Cardinals' opportunity here now that they're drafting the top 5.
It's obviously really exciting. The Cardinals last year, or this past year, they were able to get JJ Weatherholt, who was a guy that was projected to go first overall for like a while. It seemed like, going back to but prior to the season, he was the projected number 1 guy. It felt like on draft day he was going to be selected first overall to Cleveland, and to get that kind of talent 7th overall, and now being able to pick in the top 5, or I mean, they picked 7th, but to be able to get another top pick here, it's really exciting. I was ready to tweet out the Cardinals are, picking 13th overall, but I was just watching the lottery, and, every time a team went by, I just got more and more excited, and the Cardinals ended up, with the 5th overall pick, which is a great spot to be in, moving up 8 spots from where they're projected to go. And yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think that's it's only positive, right? Like, there's no guarantee when you pick in the top 5 that you're going to nail that selection. I mean, you just go back and look at the top 5s of almost every draft, and you're going to find 2 or 3 names. You're like, how'd that person go top 5? That didn't work out. But it's the opportunity, right? When you're picking that high in the order, obviously you've got the whole the world's your oyster at that point of all the players that are available, and then just the kind of tools that you can dream on that kind of spot. Like the Cardinals got lucky to have a talent like JJ available on the board at 7, and while there would have been other great talents there, who's to say what the 2025 class will end up turning out? I think Keith Law has believed it's a little bit of a weaker class at the top this year, and I don't know what the general consensus is. But in general, just having the opportunity to be at the top 5 is a huge deal. And I really enjoy Randy Flores, and I think he does a good job overall. Some of the first round picks, especially in the middle of the rounds, like the Zach Thompsons of the world, maybe McGreevy is going to end up being a nice pick, but in the moment, instead of George Kirby, kind of tough, or maybe that's Zach Thompson. But some of those kind of low ceiling picks at times are frustrating, but when you're picking in top 5, I kind of believe in they're going to lean towards someone with high upside there. And then you also have Chaim Bloom in charge now too. We've seen what Chaim Bloom can do with top picks, where it's Marcelo Mayer, Kyle Teal. One of the other, I think they also had another significant top pick while he was there. Or maybe those are the 2, but obviously we've seen what Bloom's done in Boston with their selections. That's really intriguing. And also the Cardinals have 3 picks in the top 80 this time, which last year they lost their pick for signing Sonny Gray in the 2nd round. And so they just had 1 pick in the top 80 picks. So I think that's an underrated part of this too, where none of us are really going to maybe throw a party over getting a comp B pick. But in general, for rebuilding this farm system and resetting, having the opportunity to select 3 players in the top 80 means a lot. So Andrew, what was your reaction to that?
It was pretty exciting. Definitely good to be picking as high as we are. Jumped a lot of spots from where we were projected to go, which is, I think, good considering how we dropped a couple of spots last year and still got a pretty decent selection out of JJ. Actually, very good selection out of JJ. I won't push that narrative anymore, but yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting names always in every draft, and I think in baseball it definitely matters a little bit less than other sports where like your 24th round or 24th round pick could end up being an all-star and your first round pick could end up just never making it, right? And that's happened before, and it might happen now. Obviously they took Zach Thompson over George Kirby and like Anthony Volpe, and that's rough, right? Like we don't want that, but sometimes stuff like that just does happen. But I'm glad that Chaim Bloom will get to have a say in yet another top 10 pick. And I mean, now the Cardinals kind of can't really tank next year because even if they do, even if they miss out, they're not going to be picking in the top 10 next year, because that's just kind of how this draft lottery system works. You got lucky this year though, so very happy about that. Getting a top 5 pick in a winning season is definitely not something we're used to, but with this new draft lottery format, I think, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I think it's an underrated thing that hasn't been talked a lot about. Yeah, is if the Cardinals do miss the playoffs again next year, they're looking at the 10th pick at best. And so, again, that's not necessarily a reason to hold on to veterans and try to win. But it is like, hey, don't cross your fingers they have a bottom 5 record, because that's not going to mean anything. If anything, it'll be more frustrating because they end up like the White Sox, where you're like, wow, we had the worst record in Major League history and we don't even get a good pick out of it. But Kareem, I know it's super early and we're not gonna make you give a prediction or anything, but are there any names at the top of the class that are already intriguing you this early on?
The one guy I'm eyeing, and I already tweeted about him, and I've talked about him even before the Cardinals ended up with the 5th pick. That's left-hand pitcher Jamie Arnold from Florida State University. I think Arnold is the kind of pitcher the Cardinals have really liked to target these past few years. A guy that has a flatter 4-seam fastball, a pitch that he throws from a lower arm slot. He's a kid that's really athletic, a guy that is able to manage the strike zone, throws a lot of strikes, a lot of traits that the Cardinals have targeted in their pitcher selections the past few years. And I think this is someone the Cardinals would definitely have really high on their board. This past season at Florida State, he had a 2.98 ERA in 105 2/3 innings. Struck out 159 batters and only walked 26. So the results are there for him. He's projected to go inside the top 5. Most outlets have him inside their top 5 in their rankings. And, I could see, him falling to 5. And if that were the case, and, he was obviously able to have a productive season, stay healthy, I think he's someone that the Cardinals would definitely look at. And I could definitely see the Cardinals picking him.
Yeah, Jamie Arnold's definitely one. I don't think Ethan Holiday's gonna be falling to number 5, but also it's so early and he's a high school prospect, and feels like there's a lot of high school prospects at the top of this class too, and you just never know. Those guys can rise very quickly. Maybe there is by this time next year 4 or 5 really awesome names that people are really excited about, or maybe it's a kind of a crapshoot and you just don't really know who's going to go anywhere. But before we jump into more of the winter meetings, reactions, offseason talk, we want to thank a couple of our sponsors, and Adrian's going to do that for us real quick.
Yeah, I'm pinch hitting for Josh today. We'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, 314 Sports Cars. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet, 10 to 5, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selection of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. If you're in the St. Louis area next Thursday, we will be running our charity live stream at 314 Sports Cards. Any donation in person will let you ask a question to us and Bernie, who will be joining us. Kareem will be there as well, not in person, but he will be on the stream with us, hopefully talking some draft prospects and some of the Rule 5 stuff that just went down. But definitely if you're in the area, check them out for that event. And just also, if you're looking for any fun baseball cards like this two-way player Mason Wynn card that I always have on me. But next, I would like to thank Underdog Fantasy, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You got to check out their pick'em. It's super easy to play. Just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can multiply your money 20 by 20 if you go 5 for 5, so like Kareem with draft prospects, sound like fun? Sign up with promo code CARDS to claim your free pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Josh has one that he wants to share for Thursday Night Football today, which hopefully he'll get right because he's like 0 for his last 3, like Paul Goldschmidt.
Hey, I did start off with a bang though, so my first one worked out well. Okay, it's 49ers Rams night, divisional game, Thursday Night Football, always weird stuff. Both defenses are actually better than I think people think they are. I mean, historically 49ers one has been good, but like had a weird season, but the pass defense is still among the best in the league. On the flip side though, the Rams do give up a decent amount of passing touchdowns. So I do have Brock Purdy with over 1.5 touchdowns, or picking higher than 1.5 touchdowns today against the Rams. I have Cooper Kupp with the over on reception, 6.5 there. And then Kyron Williams. This is sneaky at the 49ers. They don't give up a lot of rushing yards, but they've given up, I think, the third most rushing touchdowns this year with like over 20. And so I think the Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford are going to get them into the red zone, but Kyron Williams is going to finish one of those tonight. So I actually took the rushing and reception touchdowns, 0.5, took the higher on that. So you could do just rushing touchdowns, but I did both just to save myself there. So if you want to copy my pick, go for it. I feel pretty good about it. Don't let Andrew tell you that I had some wrong recently. So
yeah, I'm waiting for baseball season before I give any takes on underdog, but looks like Kareem's a Rams fan, which is interesting. I don't think you're going to be very popular with St. Louis folk. I'll tell you that much. But
also, I love how I highlighted their defenses after Josh Allen just had like the game of the century against the Rams defense. So maybe not the week to be like, yeah, they're actually kind of decent. But anyways, that's fine.
Well, Juan Soto's press conference is going on right now. So
okay. Well, speaking of Juan Soto's press conference
and other players who are overpaid,
let's do Nato after this because the probably the biggest takeaway for me is you look at the state of free agency right now, and every year the contracts just keep getting bigger and bigger. The money keeps getting more and more, floating out higher and higher rates. And you look at the pitching and like what Kikuchi's getting, what Manaea is probably going to end up getting, what Eovaldi got, which is, I mean, makes sense. He's a proven guy, but you think of like Nick Martinez took the qualifying offer and is going to make $20 million next year. Frankie Montas got a ton of money. Like we could just keep going through all these different names of at best middle of the rotation starters. Eovaldi's more than that, but the other guys at best like a number 3 starter who are going to be making 18 to 24 million on multi-year deals this year. And you have Erick Fedde sitting over here at $7.5 million screaming, trade for me, please. It makes so much sense. And yet Katie Wu just went on the radio today and said she doubts Fedde gets traded. Fedde's name barely gets thrown out there, and so we're seeing reports of a guy that the Cardinals are looking at shopping. I'm literally want to pull my hair out at this. I know everyone has their own opinions about the Arenado and Helsley trade stuff, but this one I think we can universally agree it makes zero sense for the Cardinals to hold on to Erick Fedde. Kareem, you're like antsy in the chair right now. Tell us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you could get a lot for Fedde right now just based on what pitchers are, starting pitchers are going on the market right now. I'm disappointed, man. I think the Cardinals could be able to get an asset, especially with them, going into this reset mode. I think whether they have Erick Fedde or not, I don't think he's going to be the deciding factor in them making the playoffs. And I think it makes sense to deal a guy that could, potentially get you some assets back, and rather have to wait until the deadline and you don't know what the state is if he's having a down year. Obviously, Fedde had a breakout season this year for Chicago and the Cardinals, but this was someone that struggled a lot previously before he went to Korea. Now he changed a lot. He changed his arsenal completely. This is a completely different pitcher than the one that the Nationals brought up and selected in the first round. But at the same time, I don't want to take that risk. I'm also pro trading Ryan Helsley right now. It seems like the fan base is split on that. I think the Cardinals should definitely try to cash in and trade their valuable pieces that are on shorter term contracts.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get why they would keep Erick Fedde when their pitching market has gone as crazy as it has. And there's just no guarantee that Erick Fedde is going to be as good as he was last year, next year. He kind of regressed to some of his expected metrics, which were not as good as what he had shown in Chicago. I think like there's just no reason to. And honestly, the pitching market and the value of some of these guys makes the Tommy Edman trade look a lot better after the World Series and him going off. Because like, if you're trying to move Tommy Edman right now after not going to the playoffs and after not becoming an LCS MVP, like I don't think you're looking at nearly the value that he has with the Dodgers right now. So I just like the trade now in hindsight again kind of changes, and it's like, but you have to capitalize on Erick Fedde's value, and they need to go out and see who is interested, because like there's not that many starters that are left, right? Like a lot of these starters are signing. Like Fried is gone, Snell is gone. Like Burns is kind of the only big fish out there, and then there's a couple like middle tier guys like Manaea is still out there, and the free agency is honestly moving a lot faster than I thought it would. And a lot of these teams that are looking to contend might not have all of the pieces that they need, and they might need to go out and overspend for an Erick Fedde if they want to contend, right? Like any team can use an Erick Fedde in the rotation pretty much, right? Unless, I don't know, like the Mariners probably don't need him, but like you could probably count on one hand how many teams would not need Erick Fedde. There's a lot of teams that could use a guy like that at such a cheap cost. They could give up something of value. Like you might get a top 100 prospect back. Like probably, like I feel like you would be overpaying for 1 year of Erick Fedde, but like given how much people are paying for, like, I don't know, Luis Severino, like you mean to tell me that Erick Fedde's not at least worth that that kind of money on an open market? Like they just have to move him. Helsley, I think the same way about him. You definitely will get a top 100 guy back for Helsley. You might get like two guys that are like top 10 in someone's system. And like, you just have to go out and capitalize on the value of these guys who are not really going to be that much of an impact piece next year, right? Like Helsley is probably going to win you more games than Erick Fedde, but like, I just don't see it's frustrating to even talk about it, because they need to be fielding offers on these guys, and they need to try to move all these guys. Alex Cobb got $15 million. Alex Cobb, did he even pitch last year? Like where was he?
Barely.
Like, what did he do? I'm pretty sure he was like hurt for the entire season. So like, what are we doing? We need to move on from these guys. Matz, I think, probably will get you something now at this point. Like on the open market, Matz might get the Alex Cobb deal, and he's getting less than that right now. Also, they should have picked up at least Gibson and maybe Lynn as well, because I feel like both will get more than the 10 million. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's. There's in the chat a couple of people have said that Gould mentioned Fedde is being, or they're expected to field interest on Fedde. So, and I think Gould had said that back on Thanksgiving week too, that they'll at least listen on him. I still just feel like the messaging right now is that he's not necessarily the guy they're looking to move the most. Like it seems like Arenado and Matz are at the top of their list, and Helsley and Fedde, it's like maybe. When Fedde should be the very top, like underlined 3 times, circled, bunch of exclamation points, trade this guy. And then Helsley, if you're getting the right offers, should be next in line too. I think it's more plausible that they're not getting the right kind of offers for Helsley than Erick Fedde. Like I just can't imagine that a team is not going to, especially like you just mentioned, Andrew, like not only are these the contracts that are being thrown out, but like the opportunity to sign a starter is thinning. Like there's just not many options out there. And there are plenty of teams that still need multiple starting pitchers that they're going to be able to dream on their contention. And I can see a club being like, hey, we'll figure out the closer situation at the deadline next year. But like value, like those starts in April, May, and June are valuable. And so having a guy like Fedde in your rotation is important. And then in the case of both Helsley and Fedde, but I think especially with Fedde here, it's like, well, this guy, even if you trade for him and give a decent package back, like you can attach a compensation or a qualifying offer to him next offseason if you trade for him this offseason. And that's even more incentive for a team to be like, hey, we'll go out and pay whatever we need to do to get Erick Fedde right now, knowing that if we're not bringing him back on a long-term deal, look at the pitching market. If Erick Fedde pitches like he did last year, even like a little bit worse than that, he's going to get like 1 year, 20 million would be like, if he takes the offer, you would take him back, or he'll probably go get a 3-year, $18 million AAV somewhere, and then you get a comp pick for it. And so I just think there are plenty of good organizations out there, whether they're on a big payroll and just need to find a value bargain there, or they're the Guardians of the world, the Rays of the world, these teams that operate on these smaller payrolls where it's like, hey, we get Erick Fedde here at $7.5 million versus going out and having to sign someone to a big contract. So
yeah, shout out to the Kia Tigers who got James Nail back for like $1 million. So he could have gotten a lot more on the open market.
honestly,
Yeah, right. I'm not even joking anymore.
I have a question for you guys. If the Cardinals were to hold on to Fedde, do you think that changes your perspective at all on Helsley? Maybe they weren't super willing to move on from him. Maybe the offers weren't, what you want exactly, but they were still good enough that you could, potentially take them. Because I mean, we've heard a lot of interest in Devin Williams. It seems like 10, like a third of the league is really interested in Williams, and obviously trading bullpen pieces at the deadline where there's obviously a need for that more rather than the offseason where you've got guys in the free agent market. But it seems like he has a lot of interest, and the Brewers have floated around the idea of him potentially being traded, whereas the Cardinals, it feels kind of weird, honestly. So yeah, I just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
It's a good question. I think that you've brought this up before too. I think whether it's in a chat or just as texting, like I think I'm looking more at like if Devin Williams gets moved, then it's like and what the value was, and if the Brewers got something good in return, then it's like, well, I can't imagine teams want to be offering that for Helsley then too. But I do think if they do hold on to Fedde, that it probably is an indication that they weren't necessarily super serious about fielding offers for Helsley. Again, we won't know for sure what those offers were, but I just like. I'm open-minded to the idea that the offers aren't good enough on Helsley and that's could happen. I just can't fathom a scenario where a team is not offering you something that's worthwhile to trade Erick Fedde. And also, I don't think you can make the argument that, oh, let's hold on to Fedde and see what he has at the deadline value. I just don't really think he's going to increase his value all that much over the next year. If anything, it could potentially tank because he could go revert back a little bit. He's like a 4.6 ERA next year. And it's like, yeah, I'll give you like something for Fedde because we need some innings down the stretch. When Helsley, I could see the scenario where they're like, we could get a pretty good offer right now, but we also could fleece a team at the deadline because they really want to go all in on Helsley here for the last 2 months. And even though I disagree with that philosophy, if there's a good offer now, they should take it on Helsley. I at least see, okay, they're trying to maximize his value. Fedde, like maximizing his value is trading him now. So I do think you're right, though. It's worth looking at if they do hold Fedde and they hold Helsley, it probably means they weren't super serious about listing on Helsley. Which, I mean, the reporting now, I mean, hopefully it's posturing, but it seems like that's what they're at, is that they're not super serious about moving Ryan Helsley. And also, too, like, if they're worried about fan perception, like, I get why Ryan Helsley is a ticket, like a guy that you could maybe get someone to the ballpark because Ryan Helsley's a name. But, like, Erick Fedde's not that. Like, the average fan is not going to be like, oh, man, Erick Fedde's gone. Like,
I mean, Ryan Helsley, you're not even guaranteed that you see him play. Like I'm not going to the ballpark to see Ryan Helsley play. I've seen the entrance, like, it's a very cool entrance, but you don't get that every time.
I could just see how trading Ryan Helsley would hurt fan interest and when in a way, like I think Erick Fedde is more valuable than most fans give him credit for. So it'd actually be a net positive where it's like, you're bringing in some value here and no one cares that you let go of him. Anyway, and I mean, in general, I don't think they should be thinking about ticket sales in the moves they're making right now and holding on to players, but I'm just trying to see it from the DeWitt standpoint here. So,
I wouldn't be shocked if the DeWitts don't even know who Erick Fedde is. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
It's like Sinisi. Like,
right. Like,
who's Erick Fazoli? Like, you mean Fedde? It's like, oh yeah, that guy. All right, let's do it. Nolan Arenado. He's gone, right? Like, is there any chance, Kareem, that he's back next year? Any chance?
I don't think so. I mean, from what it's been led to believe, I mean, Mozeliak straight up said that he didn't expect him, or he expected him to be moved in the next, 2 weeks?
Yeah, before Christmas.
So I think we should definitely expect something. I don't think the Cardinals are going to get a whole lot back in return, even if they were to take on some of the money, which it seems like they might have to. But yeah, I think it's going to be inevitable. I don't know who is going to trade for him at this point. I think there are a lot of teams that I could see him going to, whether it be, Philadelphia, obviously with them wanting to move on from Bohm. I think that could make sense. New York. I think we've heard mixed reports on New York, but I think he could be a fit for them as well. So we'll just see where he ends up. But I do think it's inevitable that he is moved in this, next week and a half or so.
Agreed. I mean, Hamo just doesn't come out and say stuff like that unless something's actually happening. Joel Wolf is obviously a part of this as well. I mean, I think there's scenarios where it's kind of like musical chairs here, and all the teams kind of find fits that they enjoy, and then there really isn't a suitor out there for Arenado, and so, or the ones that are available, he isn't particularly interested in moving, and so they kind of delay this a little bit more. I think it's hard to move a guy like Arenado at the deadline because of how complicated his contract is, but considering they're having all these different conversations with teams right now, they could at least start laying the groundwork, and they can revisit it later on too if they need to. It would be really weird to bring him back, and just I can imagine the first day of spring training, all the questions that are being asked and the weird comments Arenado and Mozeliak will make, and it's just like, oh boy, this is just not worth it.
And the Angels are the second series of the season.
Oh man.
At home.
Honestly, I think it's more realistic than people think, like that he could end up there. I don't think it's like the top of his list, but like if all the contenders say no, I kind of think he'd prefer to be home than in St. Louis now.
Like, I don't get why you would want to lose, like guaranteed lose closer to home than like maybe lose, maybe not lose in a team like, I don't know, like that you're familiar with. Like, I just can't see. Like, can I say this right now? Like, Nolan Arenado's Hall of Fame case might be in jeopardy if he goes to the Angels. Like, he just might be horrible. Like, I don't think it would, but like I see a world where he goes to that system and like he learns like how that organization operates, and he's just awful.
I think Arenado is the kind of guy that we're going to have to see him go on a contender for him to live up to his hype and get back to where he once was. I just seeing him this past year with the Cardinals, it seemed like he was like really demotivated. He didn't seem like he was super motivated into being the best possible player. And I think going to a team that's potentially making a run for the World Series, I think that would help him a lot. And I still think Arenado's got the talent to be a really good player. I don't think he's completely fell off. He had it obviously last year or last year wasn't the season you wanted from him, but he's still a productive player.
I just think if he goes to Anaheim, because I've seen Anaheim bring in like so many players that are like, oh, I'm really excited about Noah Syndergaard, and he's just terrible. And I'm really excited about, I don't know, like Brandon Drury, and he's just horrible. And like, it's just like these guys go there and like they don't succeed because their system doesn't work. And like, I think it would be great. Like, I think it'd be really funny to see Arenado go to the Angels, and I would really like that. Like, I think that would be fun because I haven't been a fan of his attitude, right? Like the way he carries himself on the field, the way that like it just seems like he doesn't care. It's like you're the one who's being paid to lead this team, and if he's going to Anaheim to like lead the Angels with Mike Trout, like that would be great, right? Because it wouldn't work. And like I don't know. I think the Angels would be really dumb to trade him, but they also make really dumb moves from time to time. So
from time to time, how about like all the time?
Like all the time. But I don't know. Honestly, I think Rendon, he's making more AAV the next 2 years, but he only has 2 years left, and Arenado has 3, and Arenado is making more money in total. So maybe take him.
No.
And then you get like a reasonable return.
I don't think you even need to do that to get a reasonable return, though. So I wrote about this earlier. It's not a fail-proof system because everyone has different internal valuations of players. But like, I was trying to think of like objectively, like let's just try to think of something. I like Fangraphs has the dollar stat, which gives about like $8 million to every FWAR that you produce in terms of value. And that, I mean, you go around the internet, like between 6.5 million and like 10 million per WAR seems to kind of be like the going rate of like on a free agent market position player. Every WAR you occur, it's about $8 million. I would say $8 million in the middle. That's kind of where they go with. Well, Arenado was worth 3.1 F4 last year, which makes him about a $25 million player. He's making more than that. So, like, in theory, yes, he is a declined asset right now. He is a negative asset. But you kick in some money, and pretty quickly he becomes a neutral asset or a positive asset. Now, I'm not talking like now you're going to go and get some top 50 prospect in baseball for this guy. But Jared Gould's thrown this out consistently that the $15 million that they added to his contract is probably a given for how much they're going to be willing to kick in to this deal. You kick in even just about $15 million. And the Rockies are already paying $5 million down next year and the year after. Then, and if you're kicking in $15 million, the team acquiring Arenado is going to be paying him $22 million in 2025, $17 million in 2026, and $10 million in 2027. That's really not crazy money for a guy that the acquiring club probably thinks Arenado can also like regain some of his ability at the plate too. Now they're not going to in negotiations be like, oh, we think this guy's better than what he did for you. Like they're going to want to play the card of this guy's probably regressing still. But the problem here, they're not going to get some insane return because Arenado has a no trade clause. There isn't a huge market for him, so they're not going to have enough leverage to play this. But I think if the Cardinals continue, the more money they kick into this, the more realistic the more significant of a return you can expect. Even if they just kick in that bare minimum of 15 that people do expect them to do, I don't think you have to take on some crazy bad contract. Like all these fake trades of take on Rondon or take on Yoshida or stuff like that. I'm like, they're not doing that. They don't need to do that. I think Cardinal fans specifically think Arenado was way worse than he actually was because you expect him to be a superstar. And then he was kind of just like above average last year. I also think so, like they do the bare minimum, but what the Cardinals should be looking to do is how do we kick in a lot more money? How do we eat like 50% of this deal so that yes, we're saving some money, but we're also getting a real return back. Again, even then, it's like you're still not getting like a top 100 guy, but like, could you get a decent package back for a guy like Arenado? When, again, if you say they kicked in like 50% almost 50% of his deal, then the acquiring club is paying him $17 million next year, $12 million the year after that, and $5 million in 2027 for Arenado. Like that's a very positive asset you're acquiring at this point. I think teams would be interested in someone like that. Clearly, they are because there's like the Yankees' interest is, I think it's real. Like I know some people have shot it down, but like it just keeps coming up. I know Craig Breslow just came out and said Devers is their third base in Boston, but we've seen Mozeliak say that about Matt Carpenter before. So maybe history's repeating itself here. Angels, the Padres, I still think are real for.
I don't see a team moving him to first base. I just don't get it. Like it doesn't make any sense to me, but.
Probably not, but I mean, again, if the Cardinals are kicking in a lot of money here, then maybe they are interested in first base Arenado.
But Machado did DH a lot last year. So
yeah, he could play He can play a mixture of third base, first base, DH for a team. Obviously, I think his most value is at third base, but like, I mean, I guess he's open to playing shortstop too, apparently. So maybe,
who said that?
I think Joel Wolf did.
Really?
It's just imagine Arenado playing shortstop.
He doesn't have the legs to play shortstop.
He's always weirdly positioned at third base too. So I'm trying to imagine where he'd be like behind the pitcher's mound at shortstop sometimes. Like I don't even know.
I don't know, man. I mean, I guess if the Dodgers really don't want Mookie Betts at shortstop, then that would be so weird.
Am I crazy though, Kareem, for thinking that Arenado can have some real value, especially if they're kicking in some money?
Yeah, I think it seems like the Cardinals are going to take on some money from the contract. But I do think how much they're willing to take on is really going to affect what they're able to get back in a return. Yeah. But I do think it's way more likely that they take on some of this money than go after, someone like a Yoshida, who, by the way, I've never understood why he was, ever mocked by fans to go to the Cardinals. The last thing the Cardinals need is another positionless player that is a decent offensive player. But I mean, he's been a guy that, with his defense, he hasn't accrued a lot of value the 2 seasons that he's played in the major leagues. And I don't think he's a great fit. And taking on, 18 million over 3 years, or 18 million AAV over the next 3 years, that's just not something I could see the Cardinals going after. But yeah, I do think the Cardinals could get, maybe a top 20 prospect in the system, something like that. If they're able to take on a chunk of that contract. But yeah, we'll just have to see what ends up happening on that front. But yeah.
Yeah.
Is
And I don't
Yoshida's not from he's from the same team as Yamamoto, not Sasaki. Never mind. I take it back.
I was gonna joke that Alec Burleson needs a mentor, and so that's why you would get Yoshida. But I
They're
don't
like a lot closer in age than you would think, I think.
Yeah, they definitely are. But I mean, I don't think the Cardinals are gonna kick in the enough money to get something where it's like, oh, like that's really intriguing, that kind of return they got. But that's what they should do. And I at least am like, I'm keeping my eye on it as a possibility based on when it really became the reporting ramped up about Arenado being moved. Like Gould specifically just continue to say they're not looking just to move his salary. They want something in return. And so they're going to kick in money. And I mean, he never really gave a for sure number. He speculated the 15 because teams are going to be like, you willingly added 15 million to his contract, so we're not taking that. Like, you can pay that up. But if they're willing to eat 25-30 million dollars of this contract, I think you actually start talking about not just a top 20 prospect in someone's system, but something that, again, I don't know what to say in terms of something valuable, but more than what the typical fan, or maybe not the typical fan, but the ones, I think more than what most people would expect here. But I think that at least the one thing I did want to say is there's no scenario where they should be taking on a bad contract in return. There's just no scenario that would, unless they're refusing to eat money, and that's the way they're eating money is by taking on a bad contract. But even then, the player needs to make sense. Rendon doesn't make sense roster fit wise. Yoshida doesn't make sense roster fit wise. I mean, if there's a pitcher out there, it's like, all right, I mean, maybe
Chris Taylor. I think Chris Taylor is fine. Like he's like really bad, but he's like Brandon Crawford, but he can play every position. So like he's a little bit more versatile.
He's like Brandon Crawford, but more versatile. That will
sell. The Cardinals need a right-handed option at center field.
It's true. It's true. And I guess well, I can't remember who said it, but during the Rule 5 draft, someone was talking about look out for them to potentially pick a backup shortstop style. So maybe that's Chris Taylor instead of the Rule 5 draft.
Chris Taylor, I think the shortstop might be like the one position he doesn't actually play, but
I thought he did play a little bit
back in the day.
I mean, it's probably better than Brandon Crawford's defense was. So, I mean, not in his prime, but in St. Louis.
Yeah.
But maybe we can finish with that. Kareem, how frustrated were you that they didn't pick anyone in the Rule 5 draft? I mean, admittedly, I wouldn't really know who was on the board, so that part, I'm like, I don't really have any beef with it. But I'm like, it's a dart throw. And the Mo's comment right before it of like, well, last year Ryan Fernandez kind of handcuffed us. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was one of your best relievers. You got him for free. How are you going to complain about bringing that guy on the Rule 5 draft?
Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed. I thought there was definitely a chance to take, just dart throw on a prospect, and whether it was likely that they would stick in the major league roster or not, I still think it was worth taking a chance on, an interesting prospect. A lot of the guys that I liked in this year's, prospect pool went before the Cardinals pick. The first overall guy in the Rule 5 draft, the White Sox selected Shane Smith out of the Brewers system. He was the one player that I was probably most high on. He's got a cutter primary that's in the mid 90s. He's got a good slider. I think he could work out in the pen. Noah Murdoch, relief pitching prospect in the Royals organization. He ended up being selected to the Athletics. Evan Reifert went the next pick to the Nationals. Those were a few guys that I was really high on. But looking back at, the first round and diving a little bit deeper into these prospects, I think someone like a Juan Nunez that the Padres selected out of the Orioles system, someone that's really intriguing, someone that's mid 90s with good characteristics on his fastball, has some impressive secondaries too. Taking a chance on someone like that in the Rule 5, that's going to be one of your top prospects in the organization. And hey, whether he's ready for the major league level or not, I think you can at least see. And if it doesn't work out, you obviously move on. But if it does work out, I mean, it's a potential steal for your organization. So a little disappointed. The Cardinals did end up losing Connor Thomas to the Brewers.
I was about to joke about that.
I was watching the Rule 5 draft, and I was kind of, like, I understand the pick for the Brewers, but it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't really have him on mind as someone that a team could take. But I mean, it makes sense considering, you know, he's a guy that's got 3 different fastballs. He gets a ton of spin on his breaking pitches. He's definitely someone that this past year, when he was moved into the bullpen, he was previously a starter in the Cardinals organization. It seemed like he fit a lot better in the bullpen, and he had a great year down in Memphis. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see how the Brewers utilize him. I'm guessing he's going to be pitched out of relief, and I think he could be an effective reliever. Didn't really think of him as someone that could be taken, but hey, I mean, the Brewers know pitching, so I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on that.
Oh man, I was gonna joke. It's like, what about that lefty that pitching savvy organization picked, but it beat me to it. So, yeah, Connor Thomas was not on my radar. Someone who was gonna get drafted, but then when the Brewers did, I'm like, well, maybe he should have been because Brewers no ball. Cardinals, we're working on it. Any other lasting takeaways from the winter meetings you guys want to talk about? Again, if you're watching now, good turnout tonight or today. We really appreciate it. Like and subscribe helps a ton. Again, we got people in the stream now, so if you can like it, it's great, or subscribe if it's your first time. But any other random thoughts from the winter meetings or just things you're looking forward to for the offseason? Andrew, anything on your mind?
I just hope these guys get traded, but I don't know. If it doesn't happen, I'll be upset, but we'll have a lot to talk about. So
I'm at least looking forward to see where Arenado ends up being traded to.
For sure. And also this impending amazing presentation the Cardinals are going to make to Roki Sasaki. I mean, Mo just seemed so confident when he was talking to reporters. He was like, oh, we'll try. It's like, dude, I just like how, like, this isn't even Yamamoto where you're like, hey, we know we're going to have to pay this guy a lot of money. It's like, this guy is virtually free. And even if you don't think there's a real shot, you should be presenting yourselves as a capable landing spot, and you should be making your best possible pitch and make him say no to you, not come into the meeting being like almost inferring he should say no. Like that's the most posture. It's just like, yeah, there's probably better fits out there. And it's like, shame on you, man. That's bad. That was the one. In general, I didn't love the idea that Mo was going to continue on this year. But some of it, I'm like, okay, Bloom gets to just focus on player development this year. It's a big need. Transition year. Some of these big things that are going to potentially happen this offseason don't fall on Bloom's plate. It's on Mo. But that was like, man, I wish there's new leadership right now because this is brutal. This is brutal. So again, I was not expecting the Cardinals to get Sasaki, so that's not the point. But it's like, man, like you're not even putting your best foot forward. So why would anyone consider you? So can't wait for him to end up being with like the Milwaukee Brewers or something. It's like, well, there we go. Also, what's that prospect the Brewers have? Jesus Saves or whatever. Like he's. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Jesus Made?
Yeah, right. Is it Jesus Made? Jesus, yeah, Jesus Made. I just keep whenever I read it, I'm like Jesus Made. I'm like, that dude's gonna be a star. Like he already has the tools, but I'm like the name recognition there. So I'm gonna call him Jesus Made, not Jesus Mod. But anyways, I'm derailing us at this point, and you guys are probably sick of hearing my voice. So anyways, appreciate y'all coming out today. Kareem, thanks for joining us for the stream. Oh yeah, we just did you guys just did an interview on Birds on the Farm. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so yesterday our interview with Nolan Sparks, the Cardinals 13th round pick in this year's MLB draft. It was a really exciting interview, getting to talk to a guy that pitched Division III baseball and ended up being drafted. He was one of 3 Division III baseball players who was drafted this past year. So always exciting to have that someone that beat the odds and got drafted by an MLB team. So definitely a fun listen, and you guys should check it out.
Yeah, make sure you go check that out. And they always do good stuff over on Birds on the Farm. Admittedly, Andrew and I I don't know if it's necessarily Sandy's strong suit either, but of the two of us, we're probably the least plugged in of it. And so like, if you want to talk actual prospect stuff, Kareem's your guy. So make sure you go check over Birds on the Farm. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back on Sunday, and we got the charity stream a week from tomorrow. So we'll have some more announcements about guests coming on for that and what the schedule will look like. We hope many of you will join us at 314. But if not, again, tune into the stream. We're hopeful for a good evening with that. But until Sunday, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Josh.